Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Book Trek 2021. This is a 5-month mission I'm embarked on with a bunch of other booktubers, a reading mission in which we are reading Star Trek fiction throughout the rest of 2021. We started with the novels of the original series, my favorite Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, in August. And in September, we've been reading The Next Generation, all through the month of September. There's a huge number of Next Generation books. I could read them all in the month of September, but I'd have to read nothing else. And I obviously can't do that. I have lots of other things to read. But I have been reading a lot. And that, abruptly, it feels to me, comes to a close. We are suddenly out of September. We're suddenly out of month. Tomorrow is the 1st of October. And in October, we are not reading The Next Generation. We're reading Deep Space Nine. So I had to wrap things up. All week long, I've been saying I was going to wrap up The Next Generation by reading the novelization of the final episode of TNG on TV, All Good Things. I kept telling myself, well, when we get to the very end of the month, you'll have to read that. I'm never really looking at the calendar to realize we're at the end of the month. And that happened last night. I randomly picked a book last night, a Star Trek book, and it had to compete. Everything that I've been reading has had to compete with a big fat book I just got on Julius Caesar. It had to compete with that, but I was able to carve out some time, and then at some point, I picked a book and I read it, and it was bad. And at some point, I thought, well, okay, but you better check the calendar because you don't have many more of these duds before you have to read All Good Things. And then I saw it's tomorrow that October starts. I don't have any time at all. So this morning, I reread All Good Things as well, and it also was a dud. And it reminded me that I didn't really like that final episode. I liked minutes in it, but I didn't really like the whole thing. In fact, I largely hated large parts of it, especially the part in All Good Things where we learn that self-replicating biological molecules, life, in other words, the age-old question that biologists and creationists also have: how did something come from nothing? How did life come from non-life? How did organic matter that self-replicates and develops cell walls and whatnot, and that eventually leads to all life on Earth, how did that develop from random chemicals? And in All Good Things, in The Next Generation, we realize that the source of the origin of all life on Earth is Captain Picard. I thought, this is just insane. You've been putting this character, this boring middle manager, on a pedestal for 7 years. Now you say he's responsible for all life on Earth because he put his hand in a pile of goo? The All Good Things, the final episode, has some poignant moments in it. Of course, most famously, the final moment when Picard breaks down that stiffness between himself and his crew completely. I've noticed in rewatching Next Generation episodes that stiffness has not always been as prominent as I thought. It's far more prominent in the novels than it is in the show. Picard isn't that good at socializing with anyone. He's awkward, and when he feels awkward, he gets stiff and imperious, and that happens with his crew, it happens with strangers, it happens all over the original series. But the very fact that it transforms into something, that he responds, that he reacts when his limited social skills are tested, is proof of the fact that he wants to connect. All of that had gone completely by me when I was originally watching TNG, so rewatching it has been great, and that final moment in All Good Things is great. But the book, the book is fairly turgid. The book, I imagine, I'm absolving the writer. I think it's J.M. Dillard. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have it in front of me here. But I'm absolving the writer completely. They probably had 1 week. probably the studio gave them 1 week to bash out a novel. We need 100,000 words, 70,000 words by next Friday. Or something like that. I feel certain that something like that happened. So I don't blame the writer, but the reading of All Good Things, the book, was nothing to write home about, and neither was this thing. This is Rogue Saucer by John Vornholt. I have avoided reading John Vornholt for all of Book Trek so far. I haven't read anything for the original series. Haven't read any of the many Next Generation books he wrote because I remember reading him in this series and not liking him. He's written a lot of Star Trek fiction, probably more than anybody else, and I've never liked any of it. And this book is quintessentially demonstrates why, because it's all so stiff. It's all just so padded. So it's the author sitting down in front of his computer and saying, well, before I sit up, I need 6,000 words. So I've got these 2 scenes blocked out. And a skillful writer who's trying to give you, the reader, the most enjoyable reading experience, we get them all done together, both those scenes in 2,000 words. But I've got a contract to fill here, so I've got to get a lot of pages out of those 6,000 words. That might not be how he works, but that is certainly how this reads. Certainly. Where the Enterprise, as I mentioned before, they have a cowardice option. They have an option where the saucer section of the Enterprise can dislodge from the rest of the ship and leave the women and children behind. I know you TNG fans are howling now, but that's how it strikes me, for Pete's sake. And I don't want to hear any Star Trek lawyers telling me that Roddenberry originally considered that for the original show. He didn't do it, okay? We're talking about what's done here, not what somebody said at Spago's at 3 in the morning. It's actually done in the Enterprise D. The Enterprise D can disconnect its saucer section from the rest of the ship and have them independently controllable. And I've never liked that idea. I think it's absolutely dumb, if not unethical. And in this book, I mean, the natural question that you have if that happens is, what if something goes wrong? Right? That's the natural question that we have. That's why you wouldn't do it, because it's the natural question. And in this book, something does go wrong. The Enterprise has to go to dry dock in order to get repairs to its saucer section. So the saucer section is under repair. Everybody's crowded down below decks in the rest of the ship. But they decide, since it's an opportunity, that they will install an experimental new saucer section and give it a thorough shakedown. And naturally, trouble strikes, this time in the form of the terrorist organization, the Maquis, that occur in quite a few Star Trek episodes and in a couple of Star Trek incarnations. Just last night, I rewatched a huge chunk of the Voyager episode, the Star Trek Voyager episode called Letters from Home, where Voyager, despite the fact that it's 60,000 light years from Earth, has managed to cobble together a communications network that allows people on Earth to send messages to the Voyager crew that they had thought for years was dead. And a lot of the messages are negative, which is a very good part of very good exercise in writing on the part of the authors. And the first officer, Commander Chakotay on Voyager, was a former Maquis. He was a former terrorist who hated the Federation. He's long since fallen into line under Janeway's leadership, and in his letter, he learns that the Maquis are all wiped out. That there are no Maquis left. He might not have agreed with the organization anymore, but they were all his friends, and they're all gone. So we see in Star Trek, we see the beginning, the flourishing, and the end of the Maquis. We don't see the end, but we know that they're all gone in the time of Voyager. I wasn't watching that episode for drama, I'm afraid. And I wasn't watching it for pathos, and I wasn't watching it for developments in the storyline of the Maquis. I was watching it because I have been, over the last few years, making a sort of informal study of the handheld technology on Star Trek in all of the modern Star Treks. So not really the original show, but TNG, Deep Space Nine, and especially Voyager, where you have these pads, you have PADD, you have these personal access devices. I want to know everything about them. I want to, in continuity, I want to know everything about them. I want to know who makes them. I want to know how many a starship has. I want to know, are they reprogrammable? What can they do? What can't they do? What are they made of? How do they run? What's their power source? I've watched a ton of uber geeky videos on YouTube on that subject because I'm kind of fascinated with I'm fascinated with that. I'm also fascinated with those blocky computer terminals that are, you can turn them around, you can wheel them around, you can manipulate them, that are on, there's one on Picard's desk all throughout TNG. They're all over the place in Star Trek. And they are furniture in the background. You're not supposed to pay a lot of attention to them, but I am. And Letters from Home has that in spades. There's a whole box of these pads that each one contains a separate letter for a crew member. So does that mean that crew members don't have their own pads just in their quarters, just issued to them? They don't have one. Instead, they have to be handed one. Otherwise, if that weren't true, if they did have one of these things that was handed to them, wouldn't Neelix, wouldn't the captain just route their letters to their own devices? It's no one's interested in that. No one cares about it but me. But that's why I was watching that episode. But anyway, the Maquis get control of the saucer in Rogue Saucer. It's a plot line just waiting to happen, and Vornholt just goes through the paces. He just takes you through the paces of what would happen. The ending is never in doubt. A lot of the main plot wrinkles that are going to come up are never in doubt. The characters, there's no really good character moment, not one anywhere in this book. There wasn't in the last one I read. There wasn't in All Good Things. There hasn't been in a lot of Next Generation fiction that I've read. And now I'm done reading Next Generation fiction. I don't know when I'll do it again, but I have to say, at the end of the second month of Book Trek 2021, I have two verdicts. One is going to make all you TNG fans cheer, which is that I get why you love this show. It's exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping that I would get it, that I would find a way in, that I would find ways to love it, to appreciate it. I do, very much. It'll never be my way. I think it had to hit you at the right time. I think you had to watch the episode at the right time in your life. I think you had to watch these episodes when you were forming who it was that you are. And you had questions about what's morally right and wrong. How cool is curiosity? What price do you pay for honor? What's the ultimate end of leadership, of team service? And hovering over all of that, the character who annoyed me the most in Next Generation was always Jean-Luc Picard, because I didn't get that. I didn't need it when I was watching the show myself, so it never resonated with me on that level. But hovering over all of that is, well, that thing that we saw on the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard, inspiration. Inspirational. I see that now. I didn't watch this episode at a time in my life when I needed that. And I didn't need that when I watched the original show. The original show for me was an entirely different kind of excitement. And for a lot of those original fans, it wasn't that. We came to it as an adult. It wasn't formative. Instead, it was transformative. It was, we are suddenly seeing the culmination of a dream, good science fiction on TV every week. And then that dream also had a culmination of a dream because it was threatened with cancellation, and we saved it. And then it was canceled anyway, and it went into syndication, and again we dreamed of maybe giving it a big screen treatment. Baby, how's my little Tribble? Huh? Oh, but Tribbles eat all the time, and you don't. So you want to get down? There you go. Tribbles eat all the time, and my little Tribble has a very vexed relationship with food. There'll be whole days where she's just not interested in eating at all. Just looks at it like she has no idea what it is. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is the original series, us, the fans of the original series, we were hooked on that sequence of dreams coming true. Whereas what hooked the viewers of The Next Generation was very different. I would argue much more personal, which would explain, in retrospect, now I feel kind of dumb that I didn't see it earlier than this, that would explain the fervor with which TNG fans have defended the show to me over the decades. And now I see it. Now I get that. And that's the good news. The bad news, the bad judgment is so much TNG fiction that I read in September was terrible. Just terrible. I mean, there was some standout stuff. There were some good examples. I'm sure there are more out there. But I would say reading, I read, I think, probably 25 Next Generation books in the month of September. That's a pretty good sampling, especially since I was reading them at random. And probably 3 of those were a great number of the TNG novels that I read in September were terrible. So bad, some of them, that I couldn't even think of a way to talk about them with you. I could point out the ones that were just, I've mentioned them on this channel. They were just pure rancid fan service, just written for people who had read the last 3 books dealing with these characters, dealing with these subjects, with no attempt made to catch the reader up at all. That wasn't true with the original Star Trek. Now, I'm willing to grant the possibility that maybe that's because I'm doing more of the work with the original series. That could be true. Maybe I'm meeting them more than halfway, granting them more of the benefit of the doubt. We shall see. We shall see if this continues, because we're moving on next month for Book Trek 2021 to Deep Space Nine, which is a radical shift in many, many ways. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But it's a radical shift as far as Star Trek goes. It was by far the biggest gamble that Star Trek has ever done. I think it paid off. I don't know that it did so right away. I don't know that it did so immediately. But we're gonna be talking all about it, and we'll see if the novels are the same way. Now, I've read quite a few Deep Space Nine novels. By the time, do you want to come back up here, Frida? What's with the drama, little girl? Come on, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Sorry for the little melodrama. Go on. Oh, no, you don't. Oh, you don't. She doesn't want to go up on the couch. She just wants to nudge next to me. Anyway, we'll see if this curse of TNG holds over to Deep Space Nine. I've read quite a few Deep Space Nine novels, but by the time Deep Space Nine came along, I wasn't feeling at all religious about reading the books. And some of that is because of some Deep Space Nine novels that were awful. Just awful. Not quite as bad, as if I remember correctly, as any TNG novels that I read, but we shall see. There are far fewer Deep Space Nine novels than there are TNG books. I plan on reading one a day in the month of October. We'll see what we will see. I don't know that with the taste of all good things so fresh in my mind, I'm not sure that I want to read the very first Deep Space Nine novel, which is a novelization of the first episode, Emissary. I'm not sure that I want to do that. It could just be another, hey, you, writer guy, we need 100,000 words next week. It could be that, in which case it'd be a wasted half hour. We shall see. I will pick and we will see. I'll dip my toe into Emissary. If it's terrible, then I'll pick something else. But the first thing we're going to do for tomorrow is talk about Deep Space Nine. I will talk about a book. We're going to talk about the show as well. So I will see you then. You are forewarned. Thank you, BookTube.